Hi again, it's Todd Kelting. This is Tuesdays with Todd. We are putting the pieces together again. Today we're talking about what the effect is of these non-payment of rent suits on your tenants. It's important to keep in mind. This is a process. I've put a bunch of puzzle pieces in front of me, but we're talking about real people and real property and real lives being disrupted by this, and it's important to have policies in place that prevent harm as much as possible. So it's important first to make sure that you're not filing lawsuits against people who don't owe you money. Try not to make the mistake, because these lawsuits do show up on tenants' rental history. Sometimes they show up on tenants' credit reports, and they do affect tenants' ability to get loans, to rent cars, buy cars, to rent other apartments, or to buy houses. And so it's really important to be careful to make sure that that suits are being filed properly. And this touches back to something we talked about previously. It's not just important for me as a former video store clerk to have the right information to give to your tenants when they're in court. It's also important to avoid entering judgments against tenants who don't owe you money in the first place. So while it might be that you think the judgment is harmless, and the net effect might be that we don't evict a tenant on a judgment that shouldn't have been entered, the fact that the judgment is entered in the first place can sit on a tenant's rental history or on their credit report for months and years after the fact. So if a tenant pays you on the day of court, the morning of court, minutes before court is supposed to start, please let us know. If you tell us that the tenant is paid and the case should be dismissed, we can avoid the judgment being entered and avoid the problems that show up in the tenant's records going forward. It's really important to do this as humanely as possible, bearing in mind that the real world consequences of making mistakes, filing lawsuits that shouldn't be filed, entering judgments that shouldn't be entered, or, as we talked about in a previous episode, carrying out evictions that shouldn't taken place, disrupt people's lives. They can result in people losing property. For tenants, sometimes all they have are in these apartments: photo albums, computers, valuables, clothing. They can lose it all. So it's really important to get it right. And if you have any questions about any of these steps, please reach out to me. This is another episode of Tuesdays with Todd.